Welcome to the weekly LinkedIn Live webinar series, Voices of Leadership. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, your host, your CEO, and founder of E equals Y. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership, and we really love to feature different leaders that are joining us, whether they're from different generations, different industries, different experiences, because we all want to hear, we all have different experiences that we can bring to the table. There's no right way to leadership. And that's one thing that I'm really very passionate about. We all have to be authentic. We have to be ourselves. And great leaders really know how to deliver results. And they're using some form of what I call the E3 leadership code. They're expressing an end vision, they're engaging people effectively, they're executing and delivering results, all powered by emotional qualities. So, what we do here is allow you to meet a different leader. What drives them? What makes them unique? How do they adapt? What are some of their tips and tricks? So, before I get started, what I would love for you to do is all take a moment and in the chat, share with us where you're from. But more importantly, I have a unique question for you today. Is tell us about what your best vacation this holiday was, because we're heading into the end of the summer. So if you want to share where your best vacation was, let us know, share it with everyone else. But also use this chat to ask questions. So we'll be watching, we'll monitor the chats as we go along, and we'll try to answer your questions in real time. We'll also leave a little bit of time at the end. So let me introduce our guest today, Liz Kornele. Liz is a good friend, a really strong leader, an ex-professional dancer with a BA in molecular and cell biology. Now, with that background, Liz is actually working for Sonda as the head of inventory planning. That's a bit far away from where you started, Liz, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But she's coordinating the global supply chain in all capacities. Liz is recognized for her adaptability, meticulousness, and ability to systematically manage multiple tasks. And I love those words because I know you, Liz, and you have a really strong operational background. So I'm sure we're going to touch upon that today. And those words really do describe you, which is extremely different from where I come from. So this will be fun. She's known for her kindness and compassion. She builds strong, long lasting relationships and is always supportive of her friends, her family, and her colleagues. She thrives in making a meaningful difference, often striving for perfection when her work aligns with her values. Liz is joining us from San Francisco today, and I am so excited to have you here. Thanks for coming, Liz.
Thank you for having me.
So, ballet dancer. Every time I hear this, I know this, but it just reminds me of who you are and where you come from, and I love it. So I'm always highly impressed with everything you do. So
Thank
Liz, as
you.
you know, I'm a very nurturing driver. I like to get things done, but I care for others, and I really strive to inspire in others. And one of my core values is no one wakes up with bad intent. And my non-negotiables is constant feedback. What I'd love for you as you introduce yourself, tell us about your own leadership style. Who are you and what energizes you? What are your non-negotiables or your values?
Yeah. I think my leadership style is more servant style. So adapting to whatever the team needs most from me. And um, I would say my values are generosity, excellence, empathy, and my non-negotiables are trust, and just supportiveness.
Yeah, that's a ton of green energy. So we over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking a lot about our energies and where we get them. And we introduced, Clarity 4D, which is a preference model. And Liz, coming from the boot camp, you're familiar with some of this that I'm going to talk about. But where I've shared my red energy is my dominant. I love to run to the fire, get things done. Not to suggest that's not you, but your top energy is the green energy, right?
Yeah.
Having a lot of empathy. Did that surprise you when you had first done the preference of seeing how that came out?
Um, somewhat. I knew I would skew away from red. I think I knew that much about my personality, but um, not that surprising. I don't know. I do feel like empathy is a big part of what I value, so that part was not too surprising. But I also have that very analytic, almost scientific side to me as well.
Yeah, that's that blue energy comes out there as well and operational. I got to ask, and I'm going to go a little bit off. How did you go from molecular and cell biology into working for Sonder and doing inventory planning?
That's a great question. As you mentioned, I did move to New York to become a professional dancer after college. And once I retired from dancing, I was sort of trying to figure out where I wanted to go. There's a lot of different roads. I ended up working for a super small startup in New York that I wore a lot of different hats. I was one of a team of five and got to do a lot of different things. And I sort of fell into the beginnings of inventory planning. And for those who don't know, inventory planning involves a lot of forecasting. It's financial forecasting, inventory, demand and supply forecasting. So I really latched on to this forecasting aspect because it appealed to, like I mentioned, the analytic side of me. And then when that startup got acquired by a larger company, I was able to transition into the more traditional roles of inventory management. And then from there, I was able to look for other jobs and landed at Sonder eventually.
Yeah, it's interesting that being able to gain a role where you can leverage where you're most comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about just because I come from the high red, I've had to adapt, right? And I have to have that operational nature. My husband is surprised sometimes when I tell him I don't like projects. He's like, "You micromanaged our wedding with a project plan," but my goal of getting something done knows that I have to adapt. To make sure that the details are taken care of. Um, a lot of times, and I'm going to dig into this a little bit, Liz, is a lot of leaders tend to have that high red energy. And, you come from a place when we have a conversation, I definitely have to change my thought process, plan a little bit differently because you come from a very analytical place, you come from a very thoughtful place. How does that feel with in leadership? How have you adapted to that?
Yeah. I think I, you know, I think a lot of the people that I manage not are also low red energy. I think just the field attracts people who are stronger in that analytical side and maybe don't necessarily need that red energy as part of their identity. So in that, I think I connect with a lot of the people that I manage or I lead. The one thing that has been more challenging for me, I think, is when I need to advocate for my team. I need to summon that red energy in order to negotiate with broader forces throughout the company.
Yeah, how does that feel for you?
It gets easier over time, and I think I've always been very adaptable, as I think my career shows, jumping from a lot of different positions. You just learn to make do and sort of put on a different hat for what you need to do at that moment.
Yep. And do you find you make sure you structure some time in to go back and decompress and have some personal time so that you're ready for the next event?
Absolutely. Part of my routine is going to the gym every morning before work, and that really helps me just focus my energy for the day, as well as being on the West Coast. I can check my phone and beforehand and just see if there's any urgent news, and sometimes I ponder these things as I'm getting getting my thoughts together while I'm at the gym.
Excellent, excellent. So, we tend to build our own styles, our own personalities based on who we've known in the past, right? And so I think we've all worked for some fantastic leaders and some not so fantastic managers. I'm curious from you. Do you have any good anecdotes of some really great leaders and their attributes, or bad, and both? If you have both, it'd be great to hear.
Yeah, I would say the best boss I had was extremely transparent, perhaps even to a fault, but it made me feel acknowledged, it made me feel valued and supported. And I really recognized that and tried to emulate that in my leadership style. Um, and this person also really recognized how I worked best. And in my case, that means mostly on my own with periodic support, periodic offers of support and guidance. And so, um, when, and that's something that always has stuck with me. So, figure out what management style works for each person you're leading and really adapt your style to them.
Excellent.
Worst boss? Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Wait, let me just break that up for a little bit. I just want to unpack this a little bit. Um, this leader, this great leader, did they have the same energy and working style as you?
I would say they were more red, but again, I think we had a lot of the we did have a lot of blue and green energies that did mesh. And it's someone I still consider a friend. I texted him yesterday, in fact. Like I think those connections can go much beyond just a workplace environment when their leadership really sticks with you.
Yeah, and I bring it up because sometimes people think, oh, I'm only going to get along with people that are like me. And I don't believe in that at all. I think, bringing all different personalities, different experiences in diversity, looking for the commonality is what really brings a team together. And that's how you build relationships and trust. So
Yeah.
that's what I was curious because, I mean, you are telling me there's someone with different experiences, but knew how to adapt
Yes.
and what was going to work best for you, which I love. Um, and the other thing, there was a word you said almost every time. I don't know if you realized it, and you're describing their attribute. Well, they made me feel good. They made me feel valued. That feeling is really powerful because you're going through a lot is how I feel. That's how you present yourself with that, a lot of that green energy. And then the transparency also was how you show up, right? I need to know what's going on. I like the data. I like the facts.
Yes.
So just kind of correlating those couple of things that we were talking about, it's excellent. All right, come on, bring it. The worst,
Okay.
and
I
don't
would say
name
the
any
wor
names.
no, 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 no names. Um, the worst boss I had was a constant overreactor. I called it a case of the sky is falling, where every little issue that arose suddenly became the biggest problem. Everyone had to drop everything and jump on it, and it was just really disruptive to your day-to-day routine. It was just this constant jarring, jerking back and forth, and it, you know, when you see traits that you don't appreciate in a leader, you just bring that with you as something to make sure you don't do. And that's what I really took away from that.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, Liz, I know you're far away from what your original plan was, from going to school and things like that. But you've had a fairly traditional career as far as coming into an organization, taking on more responsibilities, getting that promotion, and going up. What are some of your lessons learned through that? So if someone's on the other line and going, "Oh, I don't know how to get that promotion," or "I don't know how to, move up in my career," things like that. Do you have any things that you've learned throughout?
Um, I think on top of, doing the work and, really proving yourself, strong person in that space. It's something that someone with less red energy doesn't naturally excel at, and it's kind of putting yourself out there, selling yourself and your abilities somewhat to some extent to the higher ups, to the people making these decisions. It's really, you know, sort of self-promoting what you've been doing and why you deserve those promotions.
Yeah. And I think only I know because we've had some of the conversations over the years. You've taken on responsibilities that weren't necessarily your responsibilities at times, right? To jump in and help team members and demonstrate what you're capable of.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, having that opportunity to learn and constantly like looking at who you are, you really have a lot of those natural capabilities, which is a growth mindset, right? And thinking about what's happening and where can we go and what can I do next, and that optimism, which is
Yeah.
just so powerful. Um, being a manager, you know, how long have you been a manager now?
Um, on on and off, I would say 5 years. When I started at Sonder, I was a manager at my previous role, and then when I started at Sonder, I became an individual contributor again, and then took on management again. So on and off for 5 years.
Did you always know you wanted to be a manager?
Not necessarily. I don't think it's something I initially gravitated towards, but I realized I did enjoy mentoring and teaching others, the skills that I had. So I think once I realized that, it came naturally.
Okay. Actually, I've got a question in. So, Ralph has asked, I'm curious if Liz feels the skills from your dance career and the need to coordinate with others to produce a successful performance has transferred over into the world of management.
That is a great question, and I would say yes. I definitely think um, when you're dancing in a company, you're reliant on every other person. You need to be able to fully trust that they're going to be where they are, but also you're practicing day in and day out to make sure that everyone knows not only what they're doing, but where everyone else will be. And so I think in that respect, you take that into management, and you just want to instill that in other people. Make sure that they feel like not only that they are someone that can be relied on, but that they know that they can rely on you as a leader.
Yeah, that's fast. That's a great question, Ralph. And I just, as I'm listening, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And then the other thing I thought about is like the sense of awareness that you have to have, right? Like you got to know the music that's going on. You got to be aware of where you are, how other people's strengths, even right when you're dancing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Are they going to hold that position? Look at me, I'm like trying to dance right now. Are they going to hold that position a little bit longer, or how do I compensate? There really is a lot in there of
Yeah.
teamwork and collaboration and trust. Oh,
Mhm.
that's fantastic. So when you think about leadership, and Ralph's got another one coming in quickly. Also, does Liz have any advice for others who are making a change in industries, and not freak out in the process?
Yeah. That's a great question. I'm not sure if I have any great advice. I think mine was just a case of go with the flow and see what happens, and it turned out. But I think I'm always a big believer in, perseverance and um, making yes, and so communication is key. Yes, absolutely.
Well, and okay, so you're highly analytical, and you got a lot of empathy. Which one balances out sometimes? Like, you go with the flow sounds like very much I can go with the flow. I'm cool. I'm using my heart to show up. The analytical could be the brain. Which one do you find takes precedence sometimes?
Wow, that's a great question. I think in strictly work life, not leadership, I would say the analytical part takes precedence. But in terms of leadership, I think the empathetic, the emotional side takes precedence.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, if you really look at it, it's all about pulling it all together, right? We can be anything. It's where we're stress, that's where it's going to show up. So tell me about one of the things that you absolutely love about leading teams and people.
I think one of the things I love is just being able to pass on these very specific analytical skill sets to my team. As I mentioned, inventory planning is forecasting. It is very analytical, and there are very specific skills you need to be successful in it. And so being able to pass that on and see the people I'm leading really take that advice and thrive, that's so meaningful to me.
Yeah. No, that's that growth mindset I get coming into play, right? And helping people. And it goes back to, the best leader that you described, right? That nurturing side of it, bringing it
Mhm.
out in you. Um, you know, when you're working with your team and what are some things that you do to inspire and enable your team?
Um, I think trying to give them new projects to work on, and I think again, being in forecasting, there's always a sort of one-off ad hoc forecasting request that comes by. So trying to take those and give it something exciting and new for them to work on it with them so we can explore together how we would approach different tasks. I think that's one of the ways.
Yep. All right, Liz, I got to ask you this question. I'm going to put you on the spot. How comfortable were you coming on and being live today?
Oh,
Is this a norm or did we stretch you a bit?
I think a little bit nervous, but I do a lot of presenting within my company, so I've gained a lot of experience over the years. If you had asked me to do this 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been a different answer, a different reaction. I think, but it's one of those things you get better with practice, and I think having a company that has allowed me to practice has been great.
Yeah, and I bring it up, and because Liz, a lot of people talk to me when we're having conversations, and for me, this is natural, right? I'm extrovert. I get my energy from being with people. I love this, so I'm like, woohoo! It's Friday. Yes, I get to do this. But I really do respect that it's not for everyone. And there's a lot of people I talk to, and they say, I can't be a leader because I can't talk in public. I don't feel confident. I get drained from people. I think you're really a strong example of someone that has, a lot of that blue and green energy, which is on the introversion side, doesn't mean you're put in a box and you can't express yourself. You can't lead a team. You can't drive change. You're a perfect example of absolutely. You find your voice, you find your authenticity, you show up as you, and you can do and you have done absolutely amazing things in your career and with your friends and family. So I know
Yeah.
I put you a little bit on the spot there and I apologize, but I want to be able to inspire others because for some it comes natural, but for others it's challenging. And I think most people, if I hadn't shared and we hadn't been very open in the beginning, people wouldn't even know because this has been, as Ralph's saying, this has been a great conversation, right? It's just easy and we know each other and stuff like that. But I just wanted to make sure we put that out there and really give hope to others.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
so
that's a
I,
great point.
yeah, because you and I were part of the boot camp. And if you recall, we had a lot of different energies on,
Yeah.
and I think that was the biggest takeaway for me was people going, oh, there isn't this mold and I don't have to fit it. And I can be myself and I can be successful. And, I want to do this. Excellent. All right. Well, it's Friday, and I know we all have a lot of things going on. So any parting advice you have, Liz, for, the next generation or someone that is learning how to lead better or even trying to lead differently?
I think just lean into your own skills, lean into what feels right, and it will come to you. You know, take advice from others, take guidance, like the boot camp that I did with Kathy, but you'll know when it's all clicking and you'll figure it out as you go.
Excellent. Just feels natural, right? Being
Yeah.
yourself and not being something else.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Liz, thank you so much for joining us. I thank you also for the audience participation, everyone being here. The goal here is really to hear from a lot of different people with a lot of different personalities and experiences because there is no one right way to join and be a leader. So we hope you'll join us in the future. If you want to learn more or hear more about what's happening at E equals Y, you can subscribe to our newsletter. I think Melda's going to put that in the chat. But I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Liz, thanks again. And we'll see you all soon. We'll see you next Friday. Have a good one.
Thank
Take
you.
care.